So we'll just be doing a quick presentation of what should go into your elevator pitch. So here are the basics of what you should have in your elevator pitch. A clear, brief message or commercial about yourself, about you. Communicate specific aspects like who you are, what you're looking for, how you can benefit a company or organization. Most of the time, people are so focused on selling themselves that they forget to tell the recruiters what kind of position they're actually looking for. So be specific about that, whether you might be looking for an internship or summer of 2021 or a co-op. You should let the recruiters know so they could give you the correct information on how to apply for that. And like the name says, it's typically 30 to 60 seconds, the amount of time you have to give your elevator. So try to put the most important information that you can talk more about on it. And have your speech memorized and practice. Rehearse out loud, maybe do it with a friend. Next slide, please. So here's just an infographic on the important aspects of a elevator pitch. Next slide. So now we're getting to the meat, the content. What do you put in an elevator pitch? So who are you? Give a good, clear, straightforward introduction by stating your year, cohort, majors, and minors, and the school. So an example would be, hi, nice to meet you. My name is Michelle, and I'm a junior in civil engineering. And I am currently studying at RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Depending on the career fair, you may or may not need to state your school. So for the upcoming school career fair, you would not need to because all the recruiters know that they're recruiting at RPI. And have a hook about you, what you're passionate about, what motivates you, and a deep background information. Maybe a childhood story that's interesting and relevant.
So another big aspect in terms of content is what do you know? So the whole purpose of the 60-second sell is to not just introduce who you are to them, but introduce what you know to whoever you are giving your sell. And so one of the biggest parts is any work experience you could ever have had in the past, whether that be simple jobs that you had through like a previous internship opportunity or co-op opportunity, or even a project opportunity you've had. That counts as work experience sometimes if you're applying to a project that is extremely, how do you put it, like engineering based. A lot of times they'll look for IED. IED experience is like a job in itself. You're working on a team like almost year round, and it requires a lot of project experience that they would otherwise be offering you through their job. But any type of work experience that's relevant to what you're trying to apply for is really useful to tell. Another thing is skills, trainings, or certifications. Um, all those are really good things to tell them because that tells them that not only are you informed about that stuff, but you're also you go out of your way to accomplish these special skills and tasks that grant you this type of expertise. So, for example, some a professional certification is Six Sigma belts. So I don't know if everyone knows what that is, but it's essentially a type of training that you go through in order to learn all the types of technical knowledge you need for what's that word called? Like manufacturing, I guess. I know one of our e-board members has already gotten hers. There are different stages, which is why it's called belts, similar to like, for example, something like karate. You can advance based on these different types of levels that you want to put yourself through. But these are all good experiences to tell any recruiter or anyone, in fact, during your 60-second sell. And never forget that soft skills are also important. Not only do people look for technical prowess, what you know in terms of like coding, but they also want to know what kind of stuff you're good at outside of just computers or the workplace. So, for example, languages. A lot of times, knowing multiple languages not only reflects on your skill to learn, but also reflects on your skill to understand and process, since being able to process multiple languages looks very well on you as someone who wants to learn more things. The next slide is what can you offer? So this is usually towards the end, after you tell them everything that you already know. You want to tell them what benefits their organization and what you exactly can do to offer them, what exactly you can do to help them, help their business, help their organization, whatever you might be applying to. This can be anything from just a passion for the industry that they're in or any expertise you may have, and usually it's something unique about you. You know, why would they hire you over another candidate that just went after you or went before you that has a similar skill set? You know, there's everything. There's something unique about all of us, and usually by pushing that point forward, that will make them see you in a different light, and sometimes it will even give them something to remember about you. Especially if you're really insistent about getting a job with their company, a lot of times this will help them associate you with something, and every time you go back or every time you talk to this person, they're definitely going to remember your face and they're definitely going to remember who you are and what you have to offer. Another thing is that you want to tell them that you're trying to hone some skills you already have. A lot of internships and co-ops, the whole purpose is learning. You know, you want to be able to apply school knowledge in a real workplace environment, so that way they know for a fact that what you're learning is definitely useful to how you're applying it and where you're applying it. And a lot of times, we RPI kids learn a lot of good things that a lot of these companies come here to hire us for. So it's really important that you tell them that I know a lot of skills and I've gotten a lot of opportunities at school to participate in clubs, teamwork environments, different types of research projects, even that I could potentially use to help your company. You know, just use that as a leverage point for you. And a lot of times they'll remember you based on just that kind of stuff. And another thing that some of us don't really have the opportunity to do is impressing with numbers. So a lot of times, numbers is the real game here. A lot of these recruiters are going to take notice if you tell them, like, for example, I helped manage this certain club's budget, and I helped them save about $200 more this year compared to the previous term. And that's going to impress them a lot because, one, you know your numbers, you know a lot of these specific details that pertain to something regarding a company's financial status in this case. So, all these things are definitely good to humbly brag, I'd like to say, to the recruiter. So, next, we're just talking about the layout. So, everyone might know that um, the 60-second cell isn't necessarily the longest of things. Then again, it is just 60-second cells, but it is going to be a good amount of words still. You're not going to be able to just put down 2 or 3 sentences and expect them to learn everything about you. So mainly it's split into 3 sections. The first usually being the introduction. You always want to tell them what you know, like what Michelle mentioned before. Then you want to tell them the experience you have. The experience is always going to come after the introduction, after you mention to them that you're an engineer or that you're a mathematician or a physician, anything like that. And then you're going to tell them about what you can do with what you know. So usually that means what you're looking for, the kind of desire you have for in terms of what you want to do with your passions, what you would want to do with those skills you've learned in school, and where you want to apply those skills. And lastly, but not least, following up. So I usually just associate that with whatever you wanted to talk to them about in the first place. So, for example, if you want to ask them about any internship opportunities they might have had, you always want to tell them what kind of contact information that you're going to be providing them, so that way they can contact you in the event that they do like you as a candidate, or that they do want to, talk to you about any opportunities that are upcoming. Um, and another big thing about the layout is don't put them like back and forth. So, for example, don't put an introduction and then go back to something that you wanted to introduce towards the end. You always want to introduce everything first, and then you will always want to tell them about your experience. You don't want to tell them about your experience and then tell them about who you are again, because then that just confuses them and usually it just lengthens the talk a bit more than it needs to be. So a big thing that helps me at least, and a lot of my professors and mentors have told me in the past, is use transition words. A lot of times if you use something like finally um, here's how you can contact me. Or for example, after your introduction, you could mention somehow like, furthermore, following my passions, I apply. I can usually apply these skills via this type of project, or I've worked in this type of environment to apply these skills. It's really important to have obvious cues for them, in order so they can understand where you're moving from in terms of introduction, experience, and then talking about how to follow up. So next is the delivery. So this is probably the hardest part about any 60-second sell. So everyone knows that a 60-second sell is going to be quick. It's only 60 seconds, and usually the time feels much faster when you're talking because while you're talking, you're so caught up on how you're saying things and what exactly you're saying, and try to clearly pronounce everything. It ends up being really rushed, and it makes you feel a bit more nervous than need be. But the biggest thing is just don't speak too fast. Everybody wants to speak fast when they're nervous. It's force of habit. But the more you practice, as Michelle mentioned before, you want to have that experience in practicing. You're going to end up speaking naturally, and you're going to naturally start to pace yourself. So another big thing, as I just mentioned, is clearly pronouncing every word. So you want to make sure that these recruiters understand what's coming out of your mouth. And usually, if you talk too fast, they're not going to really understand what you're saying, and maybe get caught off guard by something that you said like 20 seconds ago that they didn't really understand the context to. Another thing is just to stay as calm and collected as possible. Um, you don't really want to overwhelm yourself or overwhelm them with your nervous habits, like for example like scratching, or wavering, like moving your body back and forth. A lot of times that's what's on people's minds when they're presenting something, or when they're talking to someone they don't really know that well. Just try to understand that these people are human too. They're not going to judge you like that hard. A lot of times they also appreciate your you know, delivering this kind of speech in such a short period of time. And overall, it's just a conversation. They want to talk to you just like how anybody else could, in the most natural way possible. So usually that means don't like answer any uh, close-ended questions with close-ended answers whenever they do ask you stuff like that. So, for example, whether they ask you if you like something or not, don't just say yes or no. Usually give a reason why, and maybe even um, to ask them how they feel about it. Or if it's something that you want to ask them, try not to make it just a yes or no answer, because usually then that just shortens the conversation, and it's not really memorable if you just tell someone yes or no and vice versa. And overall, and this is the biggest point out of any sell or any like delivery of anything, is just have confidence in who you are and what you have to say. You know, overall, you as a candidate want to make sure that you are the best person for the job, that you are advertising yourself in the most positive light, and that you're treating yourself as fairly as possible, because you have just as much of a chance at any job as anyone else does. You know, the interview and the delivery is probably the most important part of any um, job seeking process. And just being able to talk about yourself in a non monotone way, and being able to provide enthusiasm sometimes just makes recruiters think of you that much better. And it just really makes you that much more of a uh, positive candidate in their eyes, since most of the time they're talking to a lot of people throughout the day. So you don't want to be that one person that just said the same thing as everybody else in the same tone, with the same like enthusiasm. You want to be that person that said it in a very powerful manner. You say very powerful things that make them want to remember you and to hire you specifically in the future. So moving on now, I'm just going to talk about what a good example is. So I'm going to quickly switch my screen out so I can share an example of what a good elevator pitch sounds like. Let me quickly reshare my screen to optimize for audio. All right, can everyone see my screen? All right, cool. Please tell me if you can't hear it.
Well, my name is Abigail Colley. I'm a freshman in the School of Foreign Service, originally from Richmond, Virginia. I plan on majoring in science, technology, and international affairs because in high school I had a really cool internship working with the energy infrastructure company that services much of the Mid-Atlantic, and it's called Dominion Power. And I was really interested in engineering because of that. And international affairs is something that I've been passionate about since high school because I did Model UN. So some of the clubs that I'm involved in here include the International Relations Club, the Breaking the Bubble Club, which is really just a fun club, a way to get out of Georgetown and do something fun off campus, and Georgetown Scholarship Program, which is more of an organization than a club. And of course, I also work at the Career Center as a career assistant.
All right. So just so everybody is on the same page, this is something that we did in PE3, but I think this would be useful just for participation. But if everyone just wants to quickly comment, what did this lady do well in her speech? What did you appreciate that she said or how she put it? Just put it whatever you think she did good in the comments, and we can elaborate on that. All right, yeah. Posture, yes. All right, so just to start off on the list, so Chris is right. She did get straight to the point, and a lot of times you don't have as much time as you think you do to talk about what you have to talk about. You have to get straight to the point and introducing yourself and talking about your experiences. You don't want to waste any time here rambling about things that they wouldn't care about, or that maybe you wouldn't even care about telling others about yourself. Let's see. All right. Michelle said she gave names and backgrounds of her organizations. That's really important. So anytime you tell other people about your jobs that you've had in the past, always tell them the name, because more chances or less, they're going to recognize that name instead of the experience, because the experience could be as generic as heck, but the company that you do it for is really important. Posture, yep. Always make sure you stand up straight when you're talking to somebody. This is not only a professionalism thing, but it's also a calm and collective thing. You want to make sure that you are being as you're showing them that you are in control of yourself and what you're saying. And the best way by doing that is just posture. And that's also just a rudeness slash politeness thing. Don't slouch. If you slouch, that usually means you don't really care that much and you're too chill. And they'll usually think badly about you if you slouch. Eli said she connected her experiences well from her introduction. Yes, that's great. One of the biggest things about your 60-second sell is always learn how to transition, because you don't have that much time. You're not going to be able to make a roundabout in terms of how you reach there. But usually going straight from introduction to experiences is a good segue into explaining why you're there in the first place and what job you're looking for. Amy said she mentioned her interest and seamlessly connected her ideas. Yes, again, that's very similar to what I just elaborated in terms of it's really easy to say what you like and what you've done, but it's really hard to put it in such a small package and connect them. So the best thing to do is by putting them all into one package and connecting them all, you can make sure that they're understanding your flow, understanding the background that you're providing and why you're saying these certain things. Addie said she tied her high school experiences to her current club positions. Yes, this is a big thing. A lot of times what you learn in college is really, really important, not just because of the content that you learn, but it's also how you tie it into daily life, clubs, or even the workplace. Being able to apply information is much more than just what you know. What you know usually doesn't have to do with how you apply it. But if you are able to apply anything to anything, that makes you that much stronger of a candidate. Spencer, she was very brief with her activities, and it is a great way to lead to more thorough conversations as the interaction continues. Yes, a lot of times the 60-second sell may just seem as close-ended as it is. You just tell somebody, oh, if you need me, just contact me here. But a lot of times they're going to be wanting to ask you questions afterwards. You don't want to just list out everything in your 60-second sell. You want to be able to provide them with things to ask about. So for example, if I told somebody that I used to work at NASA and I told them that I really enjoyed what I did there and how I got to participate in a project, they're going to ask me about what kind of project, and they're going to ask me to go into detail that I otherwise wouldn't have had the time to provide during my 60-second cell. Michelle said her voice also changed multiple times throughout the speech to not sound robotic. Yes. Tone is extremely important to how, one, you come off as a person, and two, how nervous you are, slash, how smoothly you can talk about all these experiences and whatnot, and yourself even. You don't want to sound robotic. Sounding robotic just makes you seem like when you're too nervous. And whenever you're too nervous, the person listening usually struggles to listen because it's just so boring. You don't want to be that monotone person that made someone fall asleep because of your 60-second cell. Kedar said she explained why she was interested in her major slash field very well. Exactly. You always want to be able to tie into account what exactly you are studying and what you're going to do with what you study. So, for example, as an aeronautical engineer, I love planes and I love traveling. And having that opportunity to travel has, given me my passion of aerospace and aviation and whatnot. And in the future, I want to apply my passion and my knowledge that I've gained through studying here at RPI to a job regarding building airplanes. Maybe designing an engine or designing an airframe. All these things you can definitely consider in how to basically bring out the reason why you were at school in the first place. We all came here to study something. We all have something to take out. We can definitely apply what we have gained into what we want to do in the future. And that's it. I think she did very good. There's a specific reason why I chose this specific video. She's very calm and collected. That's the biggest part. You don't want to seem like you're too nervous, you know. So don't make yourself nervous. And there's so many tricks out there for so many different people. Like everyone's probably heard of the thing where you picture whoever you're talking to naked. That's kind of ridiculous, but sometimes it does work. And as someone who's used that trick before, it does work. Um, you just want to make sure that everything you're saying is making sense when it comes out of your mouth, and that what they're hearing isn't necessarily monotone. It is what they want to hear, and it's put in a way where they're interested to listen to you. So again, that ties back into the whole thing of monotone. So yeah.
I think one good thing to mention is if you don't have any experience, any work experience, one of the best things you can do to show that you're capable for a job is joining clubs. For example, if you join something like the Design Build Fly or Rensselaer Rocket Society, you show that you have interest in those areas of expertise. You show that you have interest in, well, any type of tinkering. You have, well, just that kind of experience. Back in high school, if you've joined any other clubs, those are also important, such as Science Olympiad and robotics. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So there's so many clubs throughout RPI that you all can join, regardless of your major. Like there's basically everything that you could ever dream of in terms of designing something, being part of management, like managing a team and whatnot, or being a part of eBoard for any multitude of groups, from stretching from SASE to, as Chris mentioned, DBF. You could be the one that manages the labs, or you could be the one that manages the events being hosted. There's so many opportunities for you to grow as a person, to grow your leadership skills and whatnot, and to apply what you've learned through school pertaining to your specific major that you could basically show off to whoever you want to present your elevator pitch to. But these are good resources. I'm going to paste all of these real quick into the chat. They have a lot of advice, specific advice pertaining to how you want to deliver. How you want to deliver is also something very subjective. It's going to be different based on the type of person you are, what kind of stuff you have to say, what your major is, all these details. Um, it all comes down to how you want to portray your personality to someone you don't know. A lot of times, the people that are listening to you want to know more about you, whether that be for their company or if they want to hire you for something personal or specific. From general to specific, There's always something that you belong to. It just matters the way you put it, the way you explain your worth. We are only worth as much as we tell others we are. You have to be able to sell yourself in order for other people to even, hire you. So keep in mind that confidence is key and that everyone can do it, even if you don't have that much skill. It just matters how much you're willing to put those skills into a real world scenario. So if anyone has any questions, I don't know if we want to take them now or if we want to take them in the breakout sessions. Chris and Kedar?
I guess we could take in general questions now, and if they have more personal questions, they could ask them during the breakout sessions.
All right, yeah. Does anyone have any specific questions, or more general questions actually, that they want to just mention right now? Because usually whatever you're curious about, I guarantee you other people are curious about as well.
Oh.
Spencer had a question. All right, Spencer said, or I asked, what happens after I give a pitch about myself? Is there usually questions that the interviewer asks me? So it all depends on environment. So if you're just in an elevator, most likely they don't have the time to like ask you to elaborate unless they specifically, stay back in the elevator or whatever environment similar to that in which everyone's like gathered it there for a short period of time. Yeah, that's why it's called an elevator pitch. Oh, in the career fair. All right. So yeah, so I guess moving on to a different thing. In the career fair, you always want to have something prepared to ask the recruiter, not necessarily because you want to make sure they understand you've researched them. Not only that, I mean, but just because sometimes the recruiters are just so tired of hearing people all day, and it's just so difficult for them to concentrate and to like think of genuine questions to ask at the end of the day that you have to basically spark it for them. And it shouldn't be something that everyone takes personally because a lot of times these people have been standing there for like 4 hours on end. And now I guess people are just sitting on their computers 4 or 5 hours on end, answering people's questions, asking them things. So you also have to be the one responsible for asking, not just being ready for whatever they want to ask you. Does that answer your question, Spencer? Or if anybody else on eBoard wanted to chime in?